Hi, I'm Mike Sargent, and this is Arise on Screen. In this week's reviews, the hotly anticipated erotic film 50 Shades of Grey, based on the best-selling book, finally arrives and heats up the big screen. Anastasia Steele, played by Dakota Johnson, is a young girl pulled into the sadomasochistic world of multimillionaire Christian Grey, played by Jamie Dornan. The question is, can she get out before it's too late?
Don't tell me your mother named you Dr. Green.
In his first ever Kickstarter film, The Sweet Blood of Jesus, acclaimed director Spike Lee puts an unusual twist on love, sex, addiction, and bloodsuckers. Not vampires, but blood addicts in this romantic horror comedy remake, starring Felicia Pearson and Elvis Nolasco as a professor cursed with a thirst for blood.
And now a grimmer story. A woman murdered, her partial remains dumped in the woods.
Ryan Reynolds stars in The Voices, a disturbing thriller about a man who hears his pets talking to him and they're telling him to kill. We sit down with Reynolds and the film's director, Oscar-nominated Marjane Satrapi. All this and more on Arise on Screen. Hello, I'm Mike Sargent, and welcome to Arise on Screen, your global home for films both on screen and behind the scenes. So let's get to it. First, with this week's box office winners. The SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water tops the box office this week, followed by American Sniper, Jupiter Ascending, Seventh Son, and The Imitation Game rounds it out in the number 5 spot. The Oscar race is heating up to the closer we get to the Hollywood's biggest night. We have a special segment from our very own Jackson Murphy about one of my favorite categories, animated short films.
The bigger picture comes from the United Kingdom. The style is groundbreaking with a mix of life-size claymation figures and set pieces, as well as paintings. The story is heavy, two brothers taking care of their elderly mother. Authentic to a T, but rather depressing. The Dam Keeper is my favorite of the group. It's also the longest at 18 minutes. From the US and brought to life with more than 8,000 paintings, this story centers around a grade school pig who has a very important job, taking care of the dam that protects the town. Pig is also bullied at school for being dirty, but that all changes when he's befriended by a new student, Fox. With some raw and surprisingly powerful scenes, including a shockingly serious turn in the second half, The Dam Keeper is daring and often brilliant. The most widely seen of the group is Feast, the Disney animated short that debuted in theaters before Big Hero 6. It's about a dog named Winston who loves human food, and his owner who begins a human relationship that directly affects Winston's eating habits. It's a little simple but charming, sweet and satisfying, though I would have chopped out an unnecessary extended ending. Me and My Molten comes from Canada and Norway. It's about a middle daughter of a quirky family who's living what she believes is an imperfect life. The animation is light and bright and there are some clever moments, but it's the serious and surprisingly deep themes that stand out. And finally, at just 2 minutes, is the Netherlands CGI short A Single Life. All I'll say is that it's about a woman who receives a record of a song called A Single Life. She begins to play it, and what happens next is rather unique and a little bizarre, but original, funny, and quite memorable.
For Arise on Screen, I'm Jackson Murphy.
The Oscars will be handed out live in Hollywood on Sunday, February 22nd. Today, I'm joined by film critics Justine Browning, welcome Justine, and of course the incomparable Julian Roman of MovieWeb.com. Now, before we get to the big movies that everybody's talking about, 50 Shades of Grey and The KINGSMAN, there are a couple of movies that I want to mention that we're not going to get to. And you have one in particular.
I do. I really enjoyed The Rewrite, starring Hugh Grant, where he plays an Oscar-winning screenwriter who actually moves to the East Coast to start teaching writing at a college and falls for a single mom taking classes.
An Oscar-winning screenwriter who's lost his mojo.
Who's lost his mojo and, yes, discovers a new part of himself on the East Coast.
Yeah, I'd read that Hugh Grant said he did this. He doesn't do that many movies anymore, but it's got to be a good script.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it was a good script.
I completely agree.
Well, I have to mention a great film that I really enjoyed. It's a mockumentary called What We Do in the Shadows. And I have to tell you, it's a New Zealand film, and it's done as a documentary about 4 vampires who live in an apartment together. It is so funny. This is a movie do not miss. You don't expect it to be as good as it is, and it's really good.
Better than the vampire movie we're going to get to later?
Yeah, I'd say so. So, when we come back, we're going to talk some more movies here on Arise on Screen.
Got me hoping you save me right now.
Up next, a virginal college student begins an S&M affair to remember with a billionaire that pushes the boundaries of pain and pleasure. 50 Shades of Grey, next, here on Arise on Screen.
One of the great things about Arise Entertainment 360 is we have this Arise to Your Health segment, which really focuses on the holistic approach of being healthy. So we do everything from working out to juicing to getting in shape by doing fun exercises like bouncing on a trampoline or wearing these bouncy boots on our feet when we're jumping all over the set. We've done karate, we've danced the weight off, we've done just about everything. And of course, I love when we eat on set, but we do it in a very healthy and clean way.
Is that it?
Masking tape.
Are you redecorating?
No.
We have 2-inch and 1-inch. But the truly self-respecting handyman will have both in his toolbox.
Of course you will.
It's rare to find a connoisseur these days. Do you want anything else?
Yes. Rope.
The movie adaptation of the bestseller 50 Shades of Grey, starring Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan, opened this week to record ticket sales. Based on the erotic romance novel by British author E.L. James, 50 Shades is about Anastasia Steele, a college literature student who gets involved with Christian Grey, a handsome young business magnate with very particular sexual tastes. Welcome back to Arise on Screen. Well, here's a movie that I think is going to polarize men and women to a large extent. So I'm going to go to you first, Justine, because I saw the movie and I have to say it was a lot better than I expected.
That's what a lot of people are saying, especially men who go into this not having read the books and not having, you know, certain expectations that have to be met. I was actually surprised and pleasantly surprised by the fact that screenwriter Kelly Marcel decided to inject a lot of humor into what is essentially kind of an absurd story. You know, the scene where he's buying the zip ties and the rope. I
agree with you 100%. I thought that her dialogue was some of the best stuff in the movie.
I agree that the scene where they're negotiating the contract, he presents her, and it's this business meeting set up, and they're going through each thing that's expected of her and striking it and things like that. I thought that was so enjoyable, and you could tell the audience was really enjoying it. They were really
the audience I went with was mostly women, and they were they were talking to the screen. So, you know, what are the things I expected this movie to be really trashy and have nothing redeeming? I enjoyed Dakota Johnson's performance. She reminded me a lot of Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing. If you look at a picture of the two of them together, you'll see they look very similar.
I don't see that at all.
You don't see that at all. Well, Julian, we're going to get to you because you did not like this movie. But tell me, you thought, similar to me, that she was good, but he was very weak.
He was very weak, and at first, you know, him being this model type that she's allowed to project her fantasies onto is fine. But then when you get into the darker elements of the story, and particularly the conclusion, it doesn't really, you're not able to feel it as strongly. You know, his past, the abuse that he endured, and why he has these strange sexual fetishes. That's really something that you're not able to understand. He doesn't.
Well, I think that a better actor could have brought more to this. We could have gotten it. For him, to me, I felt he was weak. I felt he was not very masculine. I didn't buy him as a dom. I didn't buy her being intimidated, except from her performance. He just didn't do it for me.
Well, they don't have as much chemistry as you would hope. I think a lot of TV shows on right now, Outlander, The Americans, I think the leads there have more chemistry and the scenes are more powerful in that way. Here, they just fell flat. Like, for a movie that is supposed to be about this magnetic sexual relationship, all of those intimate scenes really do fall flat.
Well, Julian, you made the point that you felt that these were like market research sex scenes. So what do you mean by that?
Well, let me untie myself here. I thought the characters had no chemistry. I mean, Jamie Dornan is like a lump of goo in the entire film. He's like a block of ice.
He's a pretty lump of goo.
There's nothing that really connects him to the character. And listen, we're playing with house money. This is going to be a huge hit. It's totally critic-proof, but you know, going it as having not read the book and kind of like, okay, let's see what this phenomenon is really all about. It's unsexy. I feel like they didn't want to make it too hardcore or too softcore, so there's a lot of demographic testing. I mean, the sex scenes, the way they're cut, it's just really a disappointing film across the board for me. Now, I think if you wanted to see a movie about the BDSM lifestyle, let's talk about Secretary.
Sure.
Okay?
This is true. That was more true to that kind of relationship.
James Spader, it actually has less nudity by far than this movie, but it's so much more erotic and darker. And when you compare the two, it's not even a comparison, to be honest with you.
Well, let me ask you, did you find it strange that is a movie that's directed for women and she's naked through many, many scenes and he never is fully naked?
That's a huge problem, and reviewers have pointed that out, that it goes against sort of the thing that it's presenting, which is this female empowerment story.
But once again, it's not about the female empowerment story. This is a product, a mass-marketed product from Universal, and it's demographically tested. They know that people are not going to go see a film with full frontal male nudity, and so if there was anything like that in the first cut, they probably cut it out. Well, people in general. I mean, a lot of men are going to be dragged to see this movie, maybe not tied up to see it, but I feel that the audience that they're approaching, they're going to play it safe, and they want something that's going to be milquetoast for everyone.
Well, I think two things. I think that there are definitely actors who could have pulled this off. I think Charlie Hunnam, who was the original choice, would have made a lot more. He's a lot more magnetic. He's a lot more masculine. I think he's a better looking guy. He's got a better build. I think he would have been. You had a choice yourself.
No, I agree that he would have been great. Well, I think Garrett Hedlund, who was great in films like On the Road, he was kind of thrown around for this film, but he turned it down. I think a true actor could have brought something great, but a true actor probably didn't want to be associated with what you're saying, which is like studio fare.
I'm a fan of Matthew Good. He might be a little bit too old to play this role, but you know, once again, and not piling on Jamie Dornan, because I really haven't seen a lot of his work, so I can't compare if he's a bad actor.
We're only talking about him in this role.
It's very, very poorly done.
I agree. I think Christian Bale, who's a little too old, would have been better as well, because at least he's got that edge.
I don't know about that.
Now, let me ask you, since you read the books, one of the criticisms of the books, they did a study that this was not so much about S&M or BDSM, that it's more an abusive relationship.
I completely disagree with that. I think the books are guilty pleasures. They're for women's fantasies, or certain women's fantasies. They definitely do show a person who is taking charge, I think, in a lot of ways. She is telling this person no. She doesn't agree to everything that he comes up with. And really, the sequels, and probably the film sequels as well, the follow-up books are about him sort of trying to understand where she's coming from and changing to adapt to her wants and needs.
Well, you know, I think, like you said, this is playing with house money. This is a book that in England sold more copies than all the Harry Potter books combined.
100 million worldwide.
Sure, but it's interesting that they made such safe choices. They got the screenwriter of, you know, that Disney movie
Saving
about
Mr. Banks.
Saving Mr. Banks to write. Now, this is, you know, if you're going to write, take an erotic novel, you're going to get somebody who's done a Disney movie to write the script. You know what you're doing.
It is very lighthearted in that way.
You have the virginal, demure college student, you know, in love with this, you know, milquetoast billionaire. So, I mean, that part of the story is kind of standard. The thing that makes it different is the whole, you know, S&M relationship.
He has a red room of pain.
And it's not really explored in a way that's going to be erotic.
Right.
You know, and it just makes me feel like, once again, this was a movie that was tested, and they cut out anything that was too, you know, too risque or, you know, too boring to try to appeal to the mass market, and you end up having a movie that just plods down.
And
it's going to be a huge, very successful
would you recommend, Justine?
I would recommend a group of girls go see this for Galentine's Day, as the Galentine's Day, celebrating female friendship. I saw it with a group of friends, and we all enjoyed watching it together. It's about the experience.
I understand. And you would not recommend?
Well, you know, I'm a dominatrix in my spare time, Mike, so it did not live up to my standards. I would say no, I don't recommend it.
You do not recommend? Well, I would say that it depends on what you're looking for. I have to say it was a lot better than I expected it to be. I expected total utter pablum, and it's not total utter pablum. It does have some things about it that are worth it. But for those watching at home, we want you to hit us up on our social media at Arise On Screen and tell us what your favorite romance movie is. And we'll be back.
You're out your league.
Shush.
Yeah, shut up, cat.
Coming up, Ryan Reynolds is a mentally ill man who hears his dog and cat telling him to commit unspeakable crimes in The Voices. Next, here on Arise on Screen.